Welcome aboard, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health, with another live edition of Fire Your MD Now. Thanks so much for tuning in and turning on. I appreciate your support every single solitary day. And this is the only way that we are going to make a ripple in the ocean of reductionistically applied allopathic medicine. We all must stand together. We all must work together. We all just must stand up politely and speak the truth. When enough people stand up politely and speak the truth, the system will collapse. It's already collapsing under its own weight. We just need to give it a little push. What's the push? Well, the push is going to be speaking your truth about your experience of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition, science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition, and your experience thereof. This is what's necessary. This is what's required. This is really what your conscience will lead you to. Because if you have been beneath the wheel of a chronic health condition for most of your life, if you have been suffering over and over and over, and if your conventional medical doctor, the only person that you legally are allowed access to, has consistently let you down, and not only let you down, but harmed you or bankrupted you or in any way, shape, or form made things worse than they were before you went to see them, and then you recover with something outside of the convention, science-based, clinically verified something, delivered and developed by licensed, regulated physicians, not allopathic physicians, naturopathic physicians, then you will spontaneously want to tell the world your experience. And this is how we are going to change the world, by standing up, one at a time, speaking our truth, drawing a line in the sand and saying, you know what? I am sick and tired of watching everybody in my community, everybody in my family, everybody in my church die slowly, while I recovered my health by thinking outside of the box. So I'm going to speak my truth to the world. This is what we all need to do, ladies and gentlemen, and I've got a rockin' testimonial for you right now along these lines. Let's bring up Jack from New York and listen to his story. Do you have a seatbelt? I would fasten it. Do you have something heavy? I put it on top of your head because your head is about to pop off of your shoulders and explode. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Jack from New York. Jack, thanks for calling. You are live.
Oh, I'm very glad to be here, Dr. Glidden. Just glad to be alive. Before I start my testimony, I just want to acknowledge and praise my God and Father Yahweh for His Son, Messiah Yeshua, for kindly, mercifully, and graciously answering my prayers whispered in the throes of agony in my time of great need, and for healing me and affording me the health to return to work when I thought there was little chance at age 60 of ever working again. So I just wanted to say that right off the bat.
Well, here's what I'd like to say about that, Jack. There are hundreds, if not thousands, probably, quite frankly, tens of thousands of people involved in holistic medicine all around the world, millions, presumptively all around the world, who have had exactly the same experience. They have been at the end of their rope, and they got on their knees and they asked for divine intervention. Whatever their religion, whatever their persuasion, whatever their belief situation is, they prayed to God for help. And did God lead them to the MD? No. God led them away from the MD. Where did God lead them? Into the undiscovered country of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. You are not alone in your experience of being directed here by divine intervention. And quite frankly, when we have that in our back pocket, there's nothing that can stop us. But I digress. Tell the world your story, Jack. I'm sitting down myself.
Okay, all right. I have something just shortly prepared here, and I'll just read it because I personally went through this, and to me it's just a big blur. So I had my wife help me to get it, put it in sequence, and so I remember everything and don't leave anything out. Okay, I'm going to start with a brief health history. As a child, I had asthma. Then at age 8, after bouts of scarlet fever and the mumps, I suffered a total hearing loss in my right ear caused by nerve damage, and I eventually lost 40% of my hearing in my good ear also. As an adult, I developed tinnitus, and my ears began to constantly ring. In my teen years, I struggled with being overweight. My family ran a donut shop, and my diet was always included donuts, soda, and candy. Like 5 of my 6 siblings, I began smoking as a teenager, copying our chain-smoking father. And the air in my house was often blue with smoke, and so tobacco's always been a part of my life, and I'm weaning myself off nicotine through the use of an e-cigarette. In my 20s, I developed elevated blood pressure. In my 30s, I developed painful boils on my legs and was soon hit with inflammatory arthritis. Initially, I was given Indocin to treat my arthritis, but after several months, I was told that this arthritis was genetic and was not treated with any other pharmaceuticals. At the time I got my arthritis, I worked as a salt miner, a half a mile under the Earth's surface. I was forced to take upwards of 20 aspirin per shift to be able to do my job. The arthritis afflicted me in my feet, my ankles, my knees, my hips, my back, and my shoulders, but this was just something I needed to live with, according to the doctor. Near my 50th birthday in the spring of 2004, I had been having trouble with oozing of my legs and exhibiting several other symptoms like abruptly and quickly falling asleep after consuming a meal. Upon going to the doctor, I was tested for type 2 diabetes, and it was at that time the doctor diagnosed me with that condition. I was told that the condition was probably genetic, but that I might be able to ameliorate the severity of the lifelong disease by losing some weight. I was prescribed the pharmaceuticals Glyburide and Actos. Previously, I had been prescribed high blood pressure medication for my hypertension. A year later, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. My doctor prescribed me to be on 2 liters of oxygen per hour during sleep. In the following winter, I contracted pneumonia and spent almost a week in the hospital. While in the hospital, I was further diagnosed with asthma. My lung capacity was checked, and I was told I had emphysema. My diabetes was under control, and that is my glucometer readings were favorable. The following year, I contracted pneumonia twice. Both times I spent a week in the hospital. At about that time, my doctor advised me that I should retire from my job and work on regaining my health through dieting, but he gave me no diet to follow. I tried low carbohydrate diets, but they did seem to help with the symptoms, but my weight loss was nominal. It was interesting that while I spent time in the hospital, my diet tray was loaded with milk, bread, margarine, cereal grains. I developed what the doctor called venous insufficiency and was advised to get some stockings to help the circulation in my legs. I constantly had lung problems, much inflammation in my legs and congestion in my lungs. And all these conditions were in addition to my arthritis. At the time the doctor advised me to retire, he had diagnosed me with COPD and told me that I would be dead in a couple of years if I wasn't able to lose weight. He often chided me for overeating. At the time I was advised to retire, I'd been working as a tutor for the local school district in a home for juvenile delinquents and PIN kids. I hated to leave the job, but that's what he told me to do, so I retired. During the time I was waiting for my approval for Social Security disability, it then became necessary for me to use oxygen all the time, not only at night when I slept. I continued to have severe cold, flu, and asthma. I got out of breath going from one end of my trailer to the other to go to the bathroom, and I lived this way for 7 years. 5 years ago, my friend moved from Corning, New York to Tucson, Arizona, and invited me out to help him with his business, and he sent me the money. I spent 8 months there and went on a 400-calorie per day diet, and I lost 47 pounds. I did learn that, to eat a lot less, so that was good. But then I had read Dr. Wallach's book. I tried to take longevity, but I was still eating gluten, and I believe I had leaky gut. And I continued to eat what I now know to be the 10 bad foods. After losing the 47 pounds, I did feel better, but upon returning home, I put most of it back on. And in March of 2013, I had contracted the flu, and it hung on for over a month. At the same time, I got out of breath now walking from my bedroom to the bathroom next door, and that while I was on oxygen. I was in serious, terrible pain because I had developed serious ulcers on my legs and terrible swelling. My calves were measured 3 times their normal size. At the same time, I developed an abscessed tooth, and it caused me agony for over 2 months. My mental abilities were failing me, and I had developed brain fog of gluten eaters. My wife was very concerned about this. Finally, I lay in bed one night coughing up phlegm, having difficulty breathing, and I was in incredible pain. I woke up, I felt as though I was dying, and I lay there for about an hour trying to decide what I should do. I decided I had to awaken my wife so that she didn't wake up and find me dead in the bed, without any warning. I climbed out of bed and I went to her, and we spent the next several hours praying, saying goodbye to one another, talking and hugging and crying. But I didn't die that day, and for the next 2 weeks, my wife spent every night at my side praying for me and comforting me in my agony. I begged God, I pleaded for the pain to go away, but it went on and on for days. Finally, I gave up. I told God, if it was His will, I'll give Him my life. And
Jack, all right, we're going to have to stop you right there at the end of a hard break. This is an excellent stopping point. Man, oh man, I cannot wait for the addendum to this. I am so glad you called. Ladies and gentlemen, you on the edge of your seat? I sure am. Stick around. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health. Listening to a riveting testimony. Jack from New York, 60-something years old, is narrating a lifelong story of degradation, suffering, and pain, which has been forwarded by his relationship with MDs. The only medical practitioner his insurance gives him access to, the only medicine that's practiced in the hospital in his hometown, the only medicine that they really teach him about in high school or college, the only medicine that he really knows anything about is the MD. And he, like everybody else on the freaking planet, is mesmerized by 100 years of pharmaceutical propaganda to believe that the MD has the secret decoder ring to all things medical. So guess what? When you're sick, you're suffering, you're hurt, you're in trouble, you're in pain, and a smart person would do something about that. Well, Jack's a smart person. He did something about that. He went to the only show in town. He went to his MD, and then he went back to the 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 MD. And while he was under their care, his health got progressively worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And his MDs got richer and richer and richer and richer and richer, and they slept soundly at night because they were of the opinion that their therapeutics were the best in the world, even though they were failing. And when they were failing, did they take responsibility for the pain and suffering levied upon Jack? No. They blamed him. It can't be the doctor's fault. It has to be Jack's fault he's not getting any better. He's got the heart disease gene. He's got the leg ulcer gene. He's got the fat gene. He's got the arthritis gene. He's got the bad tooth gene. He's got something. Can't be the doctor's incompetence. Can't be the doctor's short-sightedness. Can't be the doctor's old-fashioned, Machiavellian, monopolistic, medical, mediocre therapeutics thrown against the wall to see what sticks. Can't be that. It's got to be the patient's fault. Guess what? Jack reached the end of his rope. He got down on his knees. And this is where we pick the story up. Jack, continue.
After that, all that, it's a wonderful commentary, Doc. Anyway, it sums it up pretty nicely. Anyway, after a couple of weeks, more pain. The abscess began to heal. The flu left me. My legs, the pain got less. And I called my doctor to see if I could get any pain medication, but he gave me hydrocodone with acetaminophen S300, which I didn't realize at the time, but found out was a psychotropic drug.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I never would have taken it. But I had to have my legs treated because on Medicaid they don't cover bandages for diabetic patients. So although my legs were oozing and there were open sores, it was like hamburger. It was awful. My doctor set me up finally with a healthcare company which sent nurses that came and dressed my wounds every day for 2 months. While going through this, I attended an online seminar on type 2 diabetes. I learned about gluten and metabolic syndrome. I followed everything I was told how to get rid of my diabetes, and I gave up all gluten. I gave up all dairy. I began to take inositol, calcium, magnesium, jaugulan, cinnamon, ivy gourd, bitter melon, fenugreek, and berberine.
Wow.
The weight began to melt off me, and in the period between May 6th and the 12-day online summit began until July 2nd, I lost 87 pounds. I had a doctor's appointment on July 2nd, and his receptionist didn't recognize me. My doctor told me he had no clue what I had done, but whatever it was, it saved my life. And I told him, Doc, all I needed was information. He still doesn't know what I did. He's one of the doctors that told me all vitamins do is give you expensive urine. My plan had been to get my digestion healed so that I could get to the point where I could benefit from longevity, from taking it, because I really, truly believe the book, Dr. Wallach's book. And so I began taking Ultimate Classic finally, and I found you appearing on the Alex Jones show, and subsequently looked you up. I read your book, and from mid-July to present, I've totally eliminated the 10 bad foods, lost an additional 43 pounds, and what's more, my symptoms of asthma, COPD, emphysema, arthritis, sleep apnea, hypertension, type 2 diabetes are gone. Gone.
Hey, hold on. It's another commercial break. I can't believe it. My head just exploded. Jack from New York coming back after these good words. Jack in New York is why I do what I do, and tens of thousands of people like him all around the world. People who have been suffering needlessly at the hands of the MDs, and the MDs take no responsibility for their lack of success. And also, when they are confronted all of a sudden with remarkable success in a patient who had been failing, you would think that a considerate, compassionate, humanistic physician, the first question to come out of their mouth would be, what did you do, and how can I get information about it? I mean, wouldn't that be what you would think? It would be what I would think, but it's not what the MDs think, which is one more reason why you need to fire them, because, ladies and gentlemen, as is evidenced by their behavior over and over and over and over again, they are not interested in helping you cure your disease or understanding how you did it. They're not interested. It's not their thing. Bringing your body to the office of an MD, expecting a cure for a condition or expecting any type of compassion or concern whatsoever is like going to a communist dictator and looking for advice about voting rights. You're not going to get them. And if everybody in the country just realized this and snapped out of it, I mean, if they just realized this one fundamental thing, your medical doctor may be the nicest person that God ever created, but they are not trained in how to cure your illness. And by virtue of their training, by virtue of their socialization, by virtue of their job skill, by virtue of the box that they have to stay inside of to maintain their medical license, they don't give a damn about whether you get better or not. Quite frankly, there needs to be a revolution. For goodness sake. Peaceful, non-militant revolution. You know how we're going to do it? You stand up in the town square and say, while I was under the care of the MD, I was dying. And I cured myself. And this is how I did it. You want to know more? You want to hear my story? Come over to my house tonight. I'll tell you all about it. Let's go back to Jack in New York. So, Jack, I want you to line up for me one more time the conditions that you recovered from, one at a time. Give me the list again, brother.
Asthma, COPD, emphysema, arthritis, sleep apnea, hypertension, and type 2 diabetes.
7 things. And from start to finish, once you kind of saw the light and, started doing the right stuff, how long did it take your body to bounce back?
It took 2 weeks for me to drop my blood pressure from 187 over 102 to 117 over 70.
2 weeks.
The guy had me on high blood pressure medication for 10 years.
10 years, and you fixed it in 2 weeks. Unbelievable. What about the arthritis?
I'm not the doctor.
Yeah, I know, right?
The arthritis is gone.
How long did it take?
It took I think about a month, actually.
Wow.
And I started taking MSM.
Yeah, smart man.
And I take 3,000 milligrams a day. You know what happened to me the other day, Doc? You got to hear this. I'm back to work. I can work 10 or 12 hours without any oxygen. And I ran the other day to catch a bus for 40 yards, and when I caught up to it, I was not out of breath. Okay. My mental acuity is back. My waistline, which had been 60 inches, 5 feet around.
Wow.
At 330 pounds, now at 200 pounds, it's 40 inches, and I'm still reducing.
What about the hamburger legs?
I look at you and Dr. Wallach as a godsend. You're the answer to the prayers. You're the last best hope for the people out there that are suffering because of the MD. And I don't mind telling my MD because he's one of these integrative medicine guys.
No, those are the worst. Those guys are the worst.
And I was like, what integrative medicine protocols did you treat me with besides the pharmaceuticals?
Right. I mean, and even when they do deliver a truly authentic integrative medical therapeutic, it's always designed to upregulate or to like manipulate, to override, overpower, and control the metabolism of the body.
Right.
They just use vitamins or herbs to do that instead of drugs. And what we do with holistic medicine is we support the body's ability to fix itself, and they control the body. But they don't do it with drugs if they practice the integrative model. They do it with vitamins, and then they, sleep soundly at night, lost in their own insanity. I mean, it's crazy, man, what we've come to. But, Jack, look, this is very inspiring. Very glad that you came on the show today. And really, ladies and gentlemen, if everybody in Youngevity Nation called this radio station every day with their story, I wouldn't be able to take calls from anybody else, but I will look forward to that day. I will look forward to the day when my phone bank is filled with testimonials, spontaneously generated by people who just want to tell their story to the world, because maybe there's somebody in Timbuktu who's listening today who has had one of the conditions that Jack from New York had and that Jack from New York recovered from with science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition, and that's going to prick up their ears. You know what? If you have a tuning fork and you have the tuning fork tuned to the key of G, and you hit that tuning fork and it resonates, and you hold it next to a guitar, the strings on the guitar that are tuned to the key of G start to resonate. You don't even have to touch it. Just from picking up the vibrations in the air, they'll start to resonate. Well, that's what happens in the psyche. That's what happens in the consciousness of people. When you speak your truth, it resonates with people. And that's what makes them motivated to change. That's what gives them hope. That just sets off a bell inside of them, and everything changes. And this, in fact, is how we're going to change the world. I cannot stress upon my listening audience enough the necessity of speaking your truth to the world, and I invite you with open arms to do it here on this radio program, to do it however you want. But, we have a big reach here, so call the radio program and tell the world what's happening. Now, Jack, are you active in your Youngevity business? Are you spreading the word about Youngevity? How's that going?
Well, listen, my sponsor is no longer in the business, doesn't take the product, and I have no contact with anybody, but I talk to everybody that gets within my arm's reach and is breathing. And I tell them my story. I ran into a lady yesterday, and her eyes bugged out. I said, listen, I'll tell you exactly what happened to me. Just give me a call. I'll be happy to share everything with you, and I can show you how you can do the same thing.
Jack,
So,
that's how we're going to change the world, Jack. Now, I would encourage you, because of your lack of upline support. That happens because longevity. It's like a tree with a million different root systems, right? On my insider subscription service, we have a whole section of business training because, there is a way to tell your story to people which will chase them away from you. Yeah. And there is a way to tell your story to people which will attract them to you. There is. And we've figured out how to do that, and it's part of the stuff that's available to my insiders. Another thing you may want to benefit from is I would call longevity up. I would call the 800 number. And I would say, hey, I'm Jack from New York. Here's my longevity ID number. I want to know who in my upline is an active, successful business builder. Get their name and their phone number and call them up because they're looking for you, Jack. They just don't know that you're there. And this is what happens when, a company gets so big. You're probably in somebody's 62nd level someplace and they don't even know you exist. But it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. So I would call longevity. I would find somebody way up high above you who's an active, successful business builder. I would call them up and say, hey, I'm Jack. I want to know how to make this business work because my story is awesome. And if you combine that upline support with the information I have in my insider subscription, Jack, you will become a force of nature. I can't thank you enough, Jack, for sharing your story. Well, hey, man, we're all in this together, right?
Yes.
And you know what Benjamin Franklin said?
65 people today to come to the program.
And that's how we do it, ladies and gentlemen. That is awesome. Remember what Benjamin Franklin said, Jack. We have to hang together, or most assuredly we'll hang alone. Keep up the good work, Jack. I am so very honored to have listened to your story. It's going to inspire me to carry on, let me tell you so. You've just given me back quite a lot. It's going to inspire me to carry on. I appreciate you more than you know. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Jack from New York, a great big Dr. Glidden round of applause. Oh, my God. I guess I should have ended with that segment, right? It's always good to go out on I don't know how I'm going to follow that. Ladies and gentlemen, but isn't that something? And you know how many times this happens all around the world? You know how many people, you wouldn't believe the things that I've seen people recover from with naturopathic medicine. You wouldn't believe it. If I'd have told you that story myself, you'd go, oh, yeah, Doc, you're exaggerating, you're making stuff up, you're blowing smoke, and, I don't know. Because that's just a hard thing for the mind to grok because we're not used to having that experience. It's like walking outside of the house and seeing a unicorn in the front yard. It's like, what the hell is that? I've never seen that before. Well, that's what this is like. Why is it like that? Because all we know all of the time is MD mediocrity, MD mediocrity, MD mediocrity, MD mediocrity. We get used to it. And we support it. Because when your relatives die unnecessarily from emphysema or for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or from really nasty arthritis, what do? You run a 5K or marathon. You run a marathon in their honor, a 5K race in their honor to raise money, and you give it to the Emphysema Society. You got to be kidding me. Well, this is what everybody does in this country because everybody is good. We're well-intentioned human beings. We're not sociopaths. We're not terrorists. We're well-intentioned, compassionate, caring human beings. Our problem is we have been hypnotized by Big Pharma to believe that the MD knows what's best for us. And even when the MD harms us, even when the MD fails us, even when the MD bankrupts us, and even when the MD kills us, we keep going back for more. You know, the majority of people that fall into the country of the undiscovered country of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition got there because they were at the end of their rope, like Jack. Can you imagine how things would change if every kindergartner, every first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade child in the United States knew what we know about medicine? Can you imagine how that would change things? I can imagine that. I imagine that all the time. The children are the future, and this is an important aspect of what we are, what needs to happen here. And once I figure out how to do that, things are going to change, and I will keep you informed in that. But ladies and gentlemen, education is the key. Knowledge is the key. And one of the easiest ways to kind of break the mesmerism that people are inside of, the red pill that snaps people out of the matrix, is speaking your truth to the world. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden, and this is Fire Your MD Now. Stick around. Check out the live stream, why don't you? The Dr. Glidden Show.tv. That's where you want to be to join in the worldwide live chat in which there are 86 attendees from all over the world. You know, ask and you shall receive. It looks like the very next caller also has some good news. Let's go to Orlando and speak to the angel Gabriel himself. Gabriel, you are live. Welcome back.
Well, good afternoon, Dr. Glidden.
How are you? See, it's not only you that's getting better, man.
Listen, he taught me something. I'm going to have to put my testimony in script because I can't remember it all, but just to give you the short version as best as I can, I've been on high blood pressure medication and insulin since I was in my early 20s. I'm 58 years old right now, turned 58 August 31st. I tipped the scales at one time at 600 pounds. Needless to say, the damage that I did to my joints. I had the arthritis. I had the pain in the knees, the ankles. I had the swellings. Because of the sugar levels, my sugar was so high that I damaged my eyes, the macular degeneration. I have a disease they said was called keratoconus. For a while, I could no longer drive anymore. The doctor told me I was going to be blind and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, to kind of speed the story up, I saw you on a health tube in July, the July 31st, and I thought you had lost your mind when you said that we need to leave the 10 bad foods alone. And I thought about it. Do you want to just keep being sick and die? And so I said, I'm going to give this guy a try. I'm going to leave it alone. And come to find out, when I answered the ad, I ran into my man, Darren Moai, wasn't even my upline distributor. Come to find out I was a distributor because I was under Beyond Organics, Jordan Rubin, and I automatically became one, didn't know it. Darren took my hand, he led me the way, he led me to you, and I was on your show August 4th, and I started August 1st, leaving the 10 bad foods alone, and I started applying. I started off with the Tangy Tangerine. That's all I had money for at the time. And to let the callers know, because of the obesity, when I was in Michigan, I was forced to resign because I could no longer walk any distance. I was in pain all of the time. So I resigned as pastor in 2004. Everywhere I went, I had to be in a wheelchair. I had to be dropped off at the door. If I went in the airport, I had to be catered around in a wheelchair. Well, some things have happened since August 1st. I went to the doctor today. It was my 90th day. Today is my 90th day. Normally, my wife takes me to the doctor so she can drop me off at the door because I could barely walk from the door to the office. But I drove myself because she was at work today. The lot was full, so I had to park all the way on the other side of the parking lot. I walked all the way across the parking lot to the door, took care of my paperwork, stood there a while, and I felt a little tension, a little tightness coming, but nothing like it used to be. Got inside of the doctor's office, and she proceeded to tell me about my blood work. And she says, oh, your protein is fine, your calcium is fine, your kidneys are fine, and everything was just looking hunky-dory. And she got down to my A1C. She says, oh, well, no, we got something bad here. She says, you're 7.2. I said, but Doc, wasn't it 11 something? I said, isn't that pretty good? So she says, okay, well, your white blood cells are perfect. Your red blood cells are perfect. She said, oh, my God. She said, your blood is too low. Your hemoglobin. She says, oh, my God, you need blood. We got to really check you. We got to check you. So I said, what is it, Doc? She says 12.0. I said, well, what's your range? 13.2 up to 17.1. I found 1 point below and you panicking.
Gabriel, man, oh man, man, I wish there was more time in the day. This has just been the greatest first hour of my show, I think, since we ever started. First Jack from New York, and now you. And I got to tell you something, man. The hits are going to keep on coming. I appreciate you guys more than you will know. What goes around comes around. I help you, you help me, and we all lift the world up together, because that's how Longevity Nation rolls. Thank you so much, brother. I look forward to seeing you, hearing more from you in the future. Hour 2, ladies and gentlemen, coming up. Don't even think about touching that dial.